The changes you made when you were in charge of JSOC maybe always were not that public, but they were meaningful, those who are in the know say. And I wonder, do you think any of those, as you write this book, Leaders, Myth, and Reality, the application of some of those lessons, are they usable in corporate America? Do CEOs listen?
Absolutely they do, because they're extraordinarily similar to the problems. What JSOC had done, starting in 1981 when it was founded, was create this incredible capability of these separate teams to do wonderful things. And technical capability, tactical capability. What we ran into in 2003 was a problem bigger than we'd ever, of scale, bigger than we'd ever done. Al-Qaeda in Iraq and connected to larger Al-Qaeda, and a complex environment that moved faster enabled by information technology. So it was bigger, it was more connected. So suddenly, this siloed but very capable organization couldn't deal with it. So we find companies, one after another, need to get faster, more agile, and adaptability needs to become core to their DNA. And that's very different from the industrial pyramid-shaped structures that Alfred Sloan and others used from the mid-19th century on, and that worked so well. In that environment, they were great.
In your very first sentence, you said team. And the thing that struck me reading your book is that the diagram isn't a top-down diagram. It's kind of the opposite of what I think with the military. It says, no, your team members, everyone's helping and reporting to everybody.
Exactly. It's a completely different dynamic which changes the role of the leader, which means that the leader has got to be thought of differently, their role, the qualities they take, and they need to think of themselves differently. Because if the leader is still trying to stand on top of the pedestal as the great woman or the great man with the answer to all the questions, they can't function in that kind of environment.
You just said the word that I want to talk about, woman.
Yeah.
We have seen for a long time, but it's actually worsening, a dearth of female leaders in charge of Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies for sure. What do you think women could and should bring to those top roles, like C-level roles?
Sure. Well, I mean, just straight talent, because talent is, equal across sexes and all. You got to find the right talent and let it move up. The problem is most of our structures, particularly I'm most familiar with the military, you got great talent as junior officers, but the female officers weren't allowed in combat arms, and so they were put in certain parts of the organization. So when it became time to pick general officers, they hadn't had the same opportunities that male officers had. So a promotion board could look at a number of colonels, male and female, and they could in good conscience pick the men because they'd had jobs that were better preparation. We've got to create opportunities. We've got to create expectations.
I love that you wrote about Coco Chanel in the book. I never thought General Stanley McChrystal was going to be writing about Coco Chanel. But you find leaders in the most unlikely of places. Who do you think out of this book is going to stick with you the most?
Well, it's interesting in a different way. Coco Chanel, because I didn't know she was a person before we wrote the book. But
you thought she was a number.
Yeah.
Number 5.
I mean, if you put her in uniform, she'd have been a great military leader. She did not mess around, and she understood both marketing, but she understood making the organization work and whatnot. The one who steps out as the best leader, surprisingly enough, is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Now, I grew up admiring what he did in terms of the rightness of the cause. But I never knew what an effective manager and leader he actually was. Because he was never elected. He was put in charge of the Montgomery bus boycott, but he didn't have positional authority that we tend to go. 26 when he took over the Montgomery in 1955. Extraordinary, no experience in leading. He was a pastor and a PhD. And then for 13 years, the civil rights movement is this group of disparate groups and big personalities, many who had been at it a long time, pulling them together, getting them to do a non-violent campaign against all the indignities and attack for 13 years of his life was extraordinary. And then maybe most impressive, he's jailed, of course, 12 times, he attempts on his life. When he's killed in 1968, the movement doesn't stop. It keeps moving. And that says a heck of a lot about building resilience into your organization as opposed to making it personality dependent.
How do you define success?
Well, it's clearly different in the context of a situation. A baseball manager might be told to win a pennant, and that's what they do, and they make the trades and activities to do that, and that would be success. But in most cases, I think of success as something that's sustainable over time. So if you create an organization and it's focused on near-term things and you make decisions to maximize near-term financial return, gain or something, but it costs in the long term, I would argue that's not real success. That's sort of false success. In special operations, we knew that we could win a lot of arguments or disagreements with the State Department and others and get our way if we held our breath till we turned blue and went to the president. But the reality is that burned bridges for the future. So we always talked about, don't think about today, think about tomorrow, the next issue. So we'd give a lot on short things. We'd take a much more even deal or agreement because we knew we had to work with people tomorrow. I think most leaders, if they take a longer horizon and their homework is graded that way, then they're more effective. And that's real success. But we have so many things that sort of pull us back to the quarterly results and things like that.
You're famously regimented on your workout and food. What is your current regimen on your book tour?
Yeah, I work out every morning. I run on one day for at least an hour, and then the next day I work out in the gym for an hour, hour and a half. Even if I got to get up wickedly early. I did get up wickedly early to do it this morning.
What time?
I got up about 3:30.
3?
But I do it because it sets the tone for the rest of the day. If I don't, there's something psychological that just bugs me. And so I've learned that give up a little pain in the morning to do that.